Hello, everybody. Welcome to Dangerous Ideas. Thanks for being here. Not sure if I've said this before, but I have a big show for you. I also, not only do I say that every show, I also say, not sure if I've said this before. So you get the same opening line every week, which I think gives you a sense of security. We're going to get into the 100-word ceasefire deal that Trump now swears is the final one he's going to give Hamas, even though it's been Israel that has sunk every single ceasefire deal because it wants to perpetrate. They want to perpetrate their genocide endlessly. They don't want anyone interrupting it. I mean, that's the worst when you're mid-genocide and someone just comes waltzing in, just fucking everything up. Come on. So I want to get into that before I like to start off with something just a little fun or funny. Often last night was or yesterday was the finals of the U.S. Open men's tennis tournament. And for those of you who don't follow any tennis, Donald Trump was in attendance, which is a problematic to begin with. Why not have a fascist up in the bleachers? But so Donald Trump was there, and it wouldn't even occur to me that he'd be rooting for one side over the other because you have an Italian guy versus a Spanish guy. There's no American for him to rah rah rah. So, what's the big? But when I saw they showed his face. I think it was the only time they showed him. By the way, a lot of the crowd booed when he showed up, but ESPN had told all their affiliates and everyone not to show or air any of the crowd reaction to Trump walking in. So you never saw any of that with the whole stadium going, boo, you suck, you piece of... Anyway, but it wouldn't occur to me that he was rooting for one side or the other. I hadn't really thought about it. You have Carlos Alcaraz versus Yannick Sinner, both spectacular players. Anyway, then they showed his face right after Carlos Alcaraz wins pretty convincingly. Only lost one set, but he won the rest convincingly. And they showed Trump. This was Trump's face. For those of you listening to the podcast, just picture your face if you were hungry and you're at a cocktail party and then someone just stole the last little baby sausage off the table. It's just he looks perturbed that Carlos Alcaraz won, and only then did it occur to me. It's like, oh, you've got Carlos Alcaraz, Alcaraz, pronounce it the correct way. You've got Spain. First of all, Spain is rather left wing, but beyond just that, you've got the guy who sounds Spanish, sounds Latin, versus the Aryan, Yannick Sinner, versus Yannick Sinner grew up in Germany most of the time, but then moved to Italy when he was 13. So he plays for Italy. So still, it's Germany and Italy. It's the two fascist countries. And so apparently Trump was not happy that the non-Aryan won the U.S. Open. It really wouldn't have occurred to me that he was rooting for one side or the other. I mean, I guess if you think about it, which guy is whiter? All right, Yannick. I guess you got to go with Yannick. Anyway, too bad for Donald Trump. So sad. But please click thumbs up, click subscribe. Make sure you click the bell icon. We're closing in on 100,000 subscribers, and I'm going to celebrate when we get there, even though I know it really means nothing because it depends on how many people YouTube tells them about the video. So you subscribe, that's what subscribers is supposed to mean. People subscribe, and then YouTube tells them about the videos and the live streams. Hey, Lee has a new video out or live stream out. But if they're not telling anyone, the last video it said they told 6%. They alerted 6% of the followers. So then that number kind of means nothing, but I'm going to fucking celebrate anyway. Here we go. Closing in on 100,000. We can do it. But anyway, let's go to this. This was exclusive to Drop Site News. I don't know if it's been seen anywhere else. And this is the 100-word, only 100 words ceasefire deal that Trump has apparently smuggled into Hamas but it's as dumb as you might think it is. But there's a lot to go through here. A 5-point summary outlining U.S. President Trump's proposal for the Gaza ceasefire was delivered to Hamas by mediators over the weekend. Trump has characterized the ultimatum as the final offer to the Palestinian resistance movement before Israel accelerates its campaign to enact the total destruction of the Gaza Strip, as if Israel hasn't already been doing that. But the outline, which contains sparse details, states that within 48 hours of accepting the ultimatum, so if Hamas were to say, yeah, let's do it, Hamas and other resistance groups would release all Israeli captives, living and deceased. In return, Israel would free an unspecified number of Palestinian prisoners sentenced to life and detainees from Gaza. For those who need reminding, there are over 10,000 Palestinian hostages in Israeli prisons right now. So don't pretend only Hamas has hostages. It's actually a few dozen versus tens of thousands. That's the difference. Anyway, but outside of just those releases, a ceasefire will go into effect upon implementation for a period of 60 days or until negotiations are concluded. President Trump will guarantee that the parties negotiate in good faith until an agreement is reached. However, we have seen again and again that Donald Trump can't guarantee that. No one can guarantee that. Israel never negotiates in good faith. Israel has broken every ceasefire. They continue to shoot people and bomb people even during ceasefires. They during the past ceasefire, the last ceasefire, they said they were going to let in a certain percentage of trucks, a certain number of trucks, and the percentage they actually let in was like 10% of what they had promised. So you could agree to these deals. Israel's not going to do it. And think about what this says. It says if Hamas releases all the captives, at that point they'll have no, real leverage against Israel. Then Israel will just treat them really well and negotiate really well after that. Israel will be really good to them after they release all the hostages. Oh, really? Will they? Oh, Israel's going to do that for them? Oh, that's so kind of Israel. I didn't know they were so sweet. That's so lovely. So during this 2-month period of negotiation, and again, I don't like reading this part is just kind of laughable because it's like once you've got everyone freed, you got the Palestinians freed and the Israeli hostages freed. Why would Israel continue to negotiate anything? Israel's just going to move forward on genocide. That's what they would do. So it's kind of funny to be like, you'll free all of the hostages and then we'll have just an awesome negotiation. It's going to be killer. During the 2-month period of negotiation, the outline proposes the disarmament of Gaza and the formation of a new government, saying that the withdrawal of Israeli forces would be addressed only after a new governing authority is installed or negotiations are completed. It also mentions amnesty for Hamas members. Right. The document, which is at times confusingly phrased, refers to negotiating the definition of Hamas, but does not explain what that means. So we're going to give amnesty to Hamas, but we're going to decide what defines Hamas. Oh, those three guys are Hamas. All the rest don't have amnesty. Right. The U.S. proposal states that there would be an open flow of aid into Gaza upon implementation of the agreement, but it doesn't address the quality of the aid or the quantity of the aid or who would distribute it or the types of goods that would be allowed in. All right, so free flow of aid. Okay, so Hamas releases the remaining hostages and then Israel sends them trucks filled with paper towels endlessly. Just 1,000 trucks a day filled with paper towels. And that's it. Nothing else. Just massive trucks of paper towels. Trump loves giving out paper towels to people in need. You remember when he went down to Puerto Rico after the hurricane and utterly destroyed them? And he went down there and he threw paper towels out to those folks. So, and this might be why you want a document like this, a ceasefire agreement, to have a little more in it than 100 words of Trump's dummy dumbness. And so this is from a senior Hamas official who talked to Dropsite. He said, this is what we received from the Americans. It looks like it was written by the Israelis. I feel like even that was generous. It looks like it was written by a 6-year-old Israeli, is what it looks like. The intention isn't only to achieve a full military victory or surrender of the movement, but also a delegitimization of the Palestinian resistance to deal with it like the Nazis. And the Israelis enjoy the appearance of moral superiority. Amit Segal, a Israeli analyst known for his connections to Netanyahu, said on Sunday, "This is not an American proposal. It's an Israeli one, wrapped in an elegant cellophane and labeled made in the USA." He added, "Trump's plans are like Apple products. iPhones are manufactured in China, then they're shipped to the US, where they're wrapped and stamped made in the USA." According to the sources within Hamas, because Trump just wants credit for it all. So if Hamas were to take this ridiculous ceasefire agreement that would completely fuck them, Trump wants to be able to say, like, I did it. It was my agreement. According to sources within Hamas and those close to the Palestinian negotiating team, Trump's new concept is being viewed with extreme skepticism, with suspicions it is yet another coordinated U.S.-Israeli deception operation to continue the genocide while blaming Hamas for rejecting peace, quote unquote, rejecting peace. So this is another, and they say there's suspicions, but it's pretty obvious. If Israel and the U.S. give a so-called ceasefire deal to Hamas and Hamas says no, then they can go, Hamas said no to the ceasefire deal, now we can keep bombing them. And so it's the whole point of it is to just have some sort of, guise of Hamas rejecting a ceasefire deal. When in fact, if you actually look at the deal, which is 100 words long, it does nothing. It does nothing for Hamas or Palestinians. It just opens the door for Israel to continue to obliterate them while saying, oh, well, we got all the hostages back. So they say the Hamas senior representative said this may be a new maneuver to help Netanyahu gain more time and to continue his plans in Gaza. Or they're under pressure from the U.S. to end the war, but they want to do so within the Israeli conditions, which aren't acceptable. In response to Trump's unspecified threats, the senior Hamas official said, what can they do more than they've already done? This is maybe the 10th warning that Trump has given that this is going to be the last time. On March 5th, Trump declared on social media, this is your last warning for the leadership. Now is the time to leave Gaza while you still have a chance. He added also to the people of Gaza, a beautiful future awaits, but not if you hold hostages. Well, what about the 10,000 that are in Israeli prisons? Does a beautiful future await them? If you do, you are dead. Make a smart decision. That was Trump's final warning back in March. For months, Hamas has publicly stated that it would relinquish its governing authority and hand power to an independent technocratic committee of Palestinians. So Hamas has said many times that they'd be willing to relinquish power. And yet Israel continues to claim that they won't do that. In May, Hamas formally proposed including this term in the ceasefire framework, and the U.S. and Israel removed it. Instead, the U.S. and Israel have repeatedly and falsely claimed Hamas is refusing to step down and use this as a justification for continuing the genocide. Hamas officials continue to emphasize that any deal must include an internationally guaranteed end to the genocide, the withdrawal of Israeli forces from Gaza, and the unrestricted flow of life essentials and aid to the enclave, which, if you think about it, those are all very reasonable things. An end to genocide and allow aid in so people can survive. Like, these are very understandable requirements, and Israel's not even beginning to entertain any of them because, of course, Israel wanted this. They helped create October 7th. They allowed the basis of it to happen, and then they went ahead and murdered hundreds of their own people to make sure October 7th was big enough that it could so-called warrant this genocide. But of course, nothing really warrants this genocide. It is also Israel has also said that disarmament of Palestinians. Oh no, Hamas. Hamas has said that disarmament of Palestinians is not acceptable and would constitute a surrender of the cause of Palestinian liberation. Netanyahu has been able to continue the genocide because of the full support of the United States. I mean, honestly, we're at a point where Israel would collapse without economic help from the United States. Israel would be done. Not just economic help, but of course, the help with missiles and bombs. I mean, Israel would have exhausted their supplies of the type of bombs they need. All of this is going on with the U.S. Absolutely. While Trump recently acknowledged that Israel's public reputation had been damaged, including among members of Congress, Netanyahu has remained defiant. The reputation is in the fucking shitter. On March 2nd, I mean, it really does feel like Israel is creating their own end. I mean, they're doing it as they genocide a people. So it's not like we can be like, hey, we're hoping Israel stops being so horrific. So I guess it's creating their own end. It's fine. No, it's fucking horrible. On March 2nd, Israel unilaterally withdrew from the January 19th, 2025 ceasefire and captive exchange deal endorsed by both outgoing President Biden and Trump. It imposed a full spectrum blockade on Gaza's population, accelerating the impact of its forced starvation operations. On March 18th, Israel resumed its genocidal terror bombings and has continued to expand its aerial strikes and ground operations with full U.S. backing. Since Israel broke the January ceasefire, Hamas has repeatedly offered to return to the deal or to negotiate a new one that would include releasing all Israeli captives at once. Israel has rejected all these offers, threatening to continue its conquest of Gaza while expanding its scorched earth attacks across the Strip. So Hamas has many times offered to create a deal, a ceasefire deal that would actually free everyone. And Israel has sunk all of them because they don't want this to end. Netanyahu, among all of them, really doesn't want it to end because he would likely not be president after this ends, and he would likely go to jail for corruption in Israel after this ends. Not for genocide, because most Israelis support the genocide, but instead for corruption. And here is the actual proposal. I will read it since it's quite short. Main proposal. Oh, wait. Did I already say it was like handed to them with no official seal or anything? Like, I don't know. It just feels a lot like a child wrote this down. The main proposal. Number one, all hostages, alive and deceased, will be released within 48 hours. Number two, numbers consistent with previous releases. Palestinian prisoners sentenced to life and detainees from Gaza will be released within 48 hours. A ceasefire will go into effect upon implementation for a period of 60 days or until negotiations are concluded. Trump will guarantee that the parties negotiate in good faith until an agreement is reached. The statement of Trump will guarantee people negotiate in good faith is so fucking funny, considering Trump has built his life and his career on lying and not negotiating in good faith. He has broken, I think, every deal he's ever been involved in. Like, the idea of Trump overseeing, we're going to have Jeffrey Dahmer look after this daycare. Should go fine. The issue, number four, the issues to be negotiated include the definition of Hamas, the definition of disarmament. So think about this. Already, Hamas releases all the captives, so Israel gets what they want. Israel releases a bunch of captives, and then they start negotiating the definition of Hamas, which, of course, Israel, at the point of a gun, would just say Hamas is any male. They'd probably say it's any male of a certain age, 16 to 90. And that when Israel would be like, that's the definition of Hamas. Then they'll also negotiate the definition of disarmament, the formation of a new government, the withdrawal of Israeli forces upon the formation of the government. This is so dumb and laughable. Or upon successful conclusion of negotiation and amnesty for Hamas members. I'm sure they'd give them loads of amnesty, just buckets of amnesty, just overflow. Oh my God. Can't believe all this amnesty we got. And number 5, open flow of aid into Gaza upon implementation of the agreement. And I'm sure they would define aid as everything that people need in Gaza to live wonderful lives. That's how Israel would do it, right? So, this is the remarkably stupid deal that Trump has said is the last one. And each time these things are handed over or hashed out and handed over, they're all just non starters. They're all just pathetic, which is what Israel wants. Israel wants there to be no deal. Does it take 2 years of genocide for people to understand Israel wants this to go on until they ethnically cleanse the entire area? All right. I'm going to get to another Israel topic, which is a leaked report from Israeli Ministry of Foreign Affairs, which did some polling to find out what people around the world think of Israel and how best to rejuvenate their brand. That polling has been leaked. It wasn't intended to be public. But before I get to that, because we need palate cleansers, right? And actually, it's still kind of on the topic because it's about a sad, corrupt individual bending over backward to defend a genocide. The other day, I covered David Pakman. You probably know him, YouTube creator. Essentially always supports the Democrats, has had lunch with Biden and shit like that, but pretends he's super progressive. He's super progressive, yet he's having lunch with Biden. Anyway, his former producer. Oh, when I covered it the other day, it was about the fact that David Pakman pretended he didn't know what AIPAC was, even though he is a big fan of Israel's genocide and has defended Israel's genocide multiple times. He pretended to have no idea what AIPAC is. Anyway, now an update on that is David Pakman's former producer, ex-producer, has come forward to say a little something about the corruption of David Pakman. And so I thought I'd play this.
Is deliberate. I actually have an email from him after he visited the White House last year on the day of Joe Biden's State of the Union address. He was invited to a private off-the-record meeting with Kamala Harris and several other content creators, including Brian Tyler Cohen, the Mycelis brothers from Midas Touch, and he told me that they all sort of talked amongst them.
I'm going to keep playing, but whenever you are having private meetings with Kamala Harris and Biden and shit that you can't relay to your fans, to your viewers, you can't say you've spoken to them. It's just a hush hush off the record behind closed doors meeting. You're already corrupted. No one is unbiased who is having hush hush off the record meetings with some of the most powerful sociopaths in the world. You're already corrupted. It's the end of the story. It doesn't matter what came out of the meeting, what you agreed to, didn't agree to. Doesn't matter. Already biased, already corrupted.
And the Mycelis brothers from Midas Touch. And he told me that they all sort of talked amongst themselves at the White House, not in like an official capacity during the meeting, but, just casually as colleagues amongst themselves. And they talked about what their editorial stance is on Gaza. And he told me in an email that they talked amongst themselves and came to the conclusion that the topic is too divisive, it might drag down their channels, that it's a poison pill, and that it's better if they just don't talk about it at all. Now, Brian Tyler Cohen literally has...
Which is already fucking repulsive. It's a genocide. It doesn't matter if you hurt your numbers. And this is kind of how I've gone. And, thank you guys for trying to find me on the edges of the internet as I continue to try and do my work and do this show. But I have always gone by, I'm going to speak about what's right. And has it hurt my numbers? In the end of the day, it has made it so that I am probably seen by 1% of the people that would see my stuff, because I have always stuck to that. I've always stuck to, I'm going to say what I feel is right. You don't have to agree with every word I say, but that's where I come from. I don't come from what they're saying, what Pacman and the others, Midas Touch and the others have said in emails. They've said, we don't talk about this topic no matter where we stand on it because it might hurt our numbers. And I've never stuck by that, and it has cratered my ability to reach people. But I'm gonna keep doing it. I can't imagine doing anything else. It's what I do, and it's what I think is right in the world. And yes, I'd love for more people to see my show. I'd love to be some massive creator, and I know it will never happen because I don't do what they're doing. You also have, and again, I'm going to play the rest, but you also have Joe Rogan just recently said in an interview, in one of his own interviews, he had one of his friends on, and he admitted that when he has on people like Peter Thiel, and he also admitted to having lunch multiple times with Peter Thiel, but meaning they're friends apparently. This is the guy who created Palantir, a billionaire that is completely destroying our lives and destroying America. But Joe Rogan said that when someone's lying on his show, most of the time he doesn't correct them and he just lets it go. Which again is designed to not lose viewers, because if someone agrees with the person that's lying, well, then you keep that viewer. If someone disagrees with the person who's lying, well, then they yell about how the person's lying, but they aren't mad at Joe Rogan, so they keep listening. So it's designed to keep viewers. Thank you, Dragon Lady, for becoming a YouTube member. Really appreciate you supporting the show. And I'm going to have a special deal for everybody in a minute to join up at leecamp.net if you want. Anyway, so you have Joe Rogan kind of saying the same thing, that, well, we don't do things that might hurt our viewership, which at times it doesn't really matter. At times it's like, okay. But at other times it's like, there's a fucking genocide going on. You're not going to talk about it. And of course, David Beckman's actually done at least a few segments supporting Israel during the genocide. So anyway, let's keep going.
At all. Now, Brian Tyler Cohen literally has never done anything on Gaza. Beyond that, during the 2020 primary, even though he was regularly putting out videos covering news and politics, never once mentioned Bernie Sanders during the 2020 primary. And we see today with this rise of Zoran Mamdani, has Brian Tyler Cohen covered him? No, not at all. So I would suggest that, yes, there absolutely is suppression on Gaza, but there also goes beyond that to like a broader shutting down of leftist issues. If you are a content creator and you have a platform of 3 million, 4 million people, and it's your job to analyze news and politics for a living, and yet you don't ever mention Gaza, it's like, I just don't understand how you would be able to sleep with yourself at night. I certainly wasn't able.
That's a great point. I mean, poorly phrased, because I don't know if you want to sleep with yourself. I mean, I don't know. I suppose you could have a good time. Just depends on how flexible you are. But yeah, how do you sleep at night is the question. I mean, I think a lot of them are sociopaths. I think others are just willing to do the mental gymnastics, which must take a lot of work. Again, you got to be very flexible to do the mental gymnastics to somehow convince yourself that endorsing, supporting, or ignoring a genocide is acceptable because it's going to help your bottom line, because it's going to help you keep a number of viewers. It's fucking crazy, man. These people are utterly unhinged. And, there was a time where, with a lot of these people, there was a time where I was kind of like in the same realm of them. I was at a lunch once. Again, this is not an off the record lunch where we were discussing what to do, so very different. But I was at a conference, and I was at a lunch, and David Pacman was actually at the same table as me. I didn't speak to him, but he sat there, and he was being he and others were being chastised for never talking about Russiagate, for never defending journalists who were having their lives destroyed by the bullshit McCarthyism of Russiagate. And of course, I ended up being one of the biggest people to have my TV show destroyed and everything by it. But Pacman never said anything, never answered, never spoke. Anyway, let's keep going.
too when I worked for him. To be honest, I sort of feel like I have blood on my hands, where it's like he has this audience of 3 million people who are, broadly moderate, centristy, liberal types who, theoretically, if they did hear about what was happening there, then, they might have been more critical of Biden. There might have been potential to pressure him and change his policy on it. But because it was shut out entirely, it became much less present in the public discourse around a certain type of person who isn't getting their news from actual journalists, but paid shills for the Democratic Party.
Yeah, exactly. His viewers are probably a billion times less informed on the reality of Gaza because they're watching a paid shill. They're watching someone who we now know was getting paid by a dark money, Democrat connected group. And he's admitted that now. He tries to somehow do some mental gymnastics where he goes, it's fine. It's what we want to happen is for the dark money funds to send us $8,000 a month. And that's on top of whatever he makes with, YouTube just bending over backwards to send people to his page. So it's got to be, when you add it all up, he's probably making $1 million a year or some shit. But $8,000 a month from a dark money group connected to the Democrats. And he says, I was never paid by the DNC. No, the DNC is not the one that cuts checks like that, you idiot. It never says DNC paid you. Like, no, it's the dark money groups that the DNC has do this shit. Those are the ones that cut the checks. Anyway, yet again, now we have one of his ex-producers revealing that, he and several others that I didn't even know about are fully in bed with the Democrats, have had closed door meetings with them about how to cover things, are told who to talk to. This was also in the Wired article, told who they're allowed to interview. And anyway, paid shills. Let's keep moving on. Oh, I'll tell you about the special offer while I'm paused here. Thank you guys so much for being here. Click thumbs up. We have hit 600 viewers at the moment watching live. It is, the number ultimately will be much larger than that because it's multiple platforms. Some of them don't even get counted on the counter there. But many people, many thousands will watch this after it's live, but still 600 of you live. Thanks for being here. And thanks for supporting the show. I have another special offer to join up at leecamp.net, my locals page. I want to give you a month free. I want to give you a month. It's only $6 a month to begin with, but I want to give you a month free to join up and just see what it's like. If you hate it, if you hate supporting this show and you're like, God damn it, why did I ever support that show? Then I get you can turn it off before the month is over. Anyway, get a month free. Leecamp.net takes you to my locals page. I hate that I'm trying now to get above the thing at the bottom of the screen. Maybe if I just change promo code to code, it won't cut my face off. Let's try that. There we go. Nope, didn't help. Okay. Go to leecamp.net, which will forward you to my locals page. Scroll down to become a supporter. Use the code LeeCampFree. If you're listening to the podcast, LeeCampFree. Go ahead and do all caps, no spaces. I don't know if the caps actually matter, but all caps, no spaces. LeeCampFree instead of Free Lee Camp, which was the motto when I was put in prison for that month. Not regular prison. It was Girl Scout prison. When I was 8 years old, I was in the Girl Scouts and they wouldn't let me out. So, but anyway, that was Free Lee Camp. This is Lee Camp Free. Very different. All caps. That'll get you a month of locals. Locals is like a mix between Facebook and Patreon. Like it's Patreon, so you support my work, but it you can post your own stuff over there. You can be part of the community. So go grab a month free by using promo code LeeCampFree, all one word, and you will support this show. But also, if you cancel before the month is out, you won't even support the show, which is fine if you choose to do that. But you'll get to see what it's like. So do that for me. Whether you want it, whether you're going to spend the next month or not, just go ahead and get the free month, please, because I'd love for you to even just support the community, maybe show up a few times, show up for the live stream, hang out with everybody. Awesome people over there. What do you have to lose? Go over there, leecamp.net, type in leecamp free. Okay, let's keep going. And by the way, thank you to everybody for commenting. Your comments are all on the screen, as you can see there. So this is an internal report by Israel trying to basically talking about their brand, Israel's brand. And this is leaked out. Israel is considered a genocidal apartheid country by most people around the world, according to Israel's own internal research. The Israeli Ministry of Foreign Affairs commissioned an American polling firm to perform a sweeping battery of surveys and focus groups, coupled with message testing aimed at rehabilitating Israel's image in both the United States and Europe. The work remains ongoing, but a preliminary report from the firm was leaked to DropSite, in which research, it has a phase in which research subjects in Europe and the US are shown videos with different messages to test which propaganda is more effective at moving the dial. So this is nothing new. I mean, it's horrific. Absolutely. These are sociopaths. These are a bunch of fucking lunatics who get together and how can we trick people into thinking genocide's okay? Like, that's legit what this is. What this is. But it's nothing new. Israel's done this kind of PR branding stuff for a long time, but they don't normally leak, and we don't normally find out the details. And anyway, they showed videos of ads, basically, to see which one would get people to think more positively about Israel and think worse about Palestinians. And one of the propaganda videos they showed the participants involved a college student holding up a Free Palestine sign, right? Very common in the U.S., very common around the world. People supporting Free Palestine. Why not? Why should Palestinians not be free? Maybe ask yourself that. Anyway, they're holding the Free Palestine, and then the person in the video slowly lowers it as she hears more messages about Israel and about the conflict, more propaganda messages. And she slowly, eventually throws away the poster because she's heard enough propaganda about Israel to find out she was wrong and there should not be a free Palestine. That's one of the commercials they show people to see how effective it is. The survey asked people in the U.S., Germany, the United Kingdom, Spain, and France how many people they believed Israel had killed in Gaza and what portion of those were civilians. Respondents in all countries overwhelmingly said that those killed were mostly civilians. So I'm glad people have figured that out. However, so let's see, the ones who think, here, I'll just give you the percentages of each country that think that mostly Hamas has been killed, as opposed to innocent civilians. U.S., 34% think mostly Hamas. UK, 25%. Germany, 32%. France, 23%. And Spain, 24% think mostly Hamas have been killed. In the U.S. and Germany, the two countries where the public remains relatively supportive of Israel, according to the survey, and you probably know how hard Germany has worked to shut down any information about the genocide. Like, they arrest people for holding up a Free Palestine sign. It's bonkers. Almost, slightly worse, barely, but slightly worse than the United States in terms of how much they're suppressing information about what's going on. The respondents also believe that Israel's campaign has been far less deadly than it has in reality. That's all respondents. Like, even the ones who know a lot of innocent civilians have been killed, all respondents think fewer have been killed than in actuality. The median response in the U.S. and Denmark, estimating the number killed by Israel, was just 10,000. And Denmark? Jesus. Denmark, get your shit together. We're idiots. Like, I will acknowledge right now, the U.S. is fucking dummies, okay? But Denmark, you think 10,000 people have been killed in Gaza? What are you Denmarkians doing? What are you doing over there? What are you Danes doing? Get your shit together. 10,000? Did you forget a zero? Anyway, as opposed to 30,000 and 40,000, which is believed in France and Spain. The current confirmed death toll, which is an undercount, is 64,000. Now, when you hear confirmed death toll, that A, doesn't count people lost in the rubble, but it also doesn't count those killed by famine and disease, which is intentional by Israel. Like, famine and disease is intentional. And so I count those. And if you count those, you're talking 300,000, maybe 400,000. The number of decrease in population in Gaza is over 400,000. However, a certain percentage of those have been able to get out in one way or another, get out of Gaza. So it's probably, of the number that are definitely killed when you include disease and famine, it's definitely over 300,000. Israel's best tactic to combat reality, according to the study, is to foment fear of radical Islam and jihadism, which remain high, the research finds. By highlighting Israeli support for women's rights and gay rights, we have gay people in our genocidal army. Bing! Aren't we the best? While elevating concerns that Hamas wants to destroy all Jews and spread jihadism, Israel support rebounded by an average of over 20 points in each country, especially once the situation in Gaza is resolved. The room for growth in all these countries is very significant, the report concludes. So basically, hey, Israel, if you stop genociding, you can convince people that you're a better country than you are. If you were to end the genocide, you would have a much easier time telling people you're not a fucking monster. Like, that would be so much easier if you weren't genociding anymore, you know? That's how to do it. All right, let's keep going. I want to make sure I get to this. So there were massive protests against Trump in D.C. and many places, but obviously his takeover of D.C. is particularly horrifying, and he has, the National Guard are wandering the streets of D.C. ICE is everywhere. There's other quote unquote law enforcement, euphemism for jackbooted thugs. There's law enforcement of varying branches all over Washington, D.C., even though he keeps claiming it's because of crime. It's not because of crime. It's the Washington, D.C. crime is at a 30-year low. Anyway, I just want to show one very short clip of the large protest in D.C. this past weekend, which people don't like having jackbooted thugs in their city for some odd reason. I don't. So that also, they were also holding up signs that said immigrant justice. So they're also furious with Trump arresting every immigrant. I would imagine that wrapped up in all of the undocumented immigrants he's arresting, there are countless number of people who actually have documentation and are technically legal, but they're getting arrested anyway. But so he has said he was coming after other cities. The one he posted about this weekend was Chicago. He wants to next attack. And part of this is to cover up about the Epstein files. Oh, quick side note, in terms of covering up about the Epstein files, it came out through leaked sources that one of the things Trump is trying to do is send people onto Joe Rogan's podcast to talk about other shit and just get people to stop talking about Epstein, because they've been brainstorming ways to get people to stop talking about Epstein. And so in that regard, they sent Representative Luna, who is a true lunatic, ironically. They sent her onto Joe Rogan to say she'd seen aliens, or she'd seen proof of aliens in Congress. Like, they brought her into a special room and showed her. And even Joe Rogan, who, like I said earlier, basically never pushes back. And I didn't listen to the interview, but I saw clips. This is one of these where he doesn't really push back. even Joe Rogan was like, that seems a little vague, because she's like, they're high energy beings and they can transport space and time. And he's like, that sounds a bit vague. A bit. How do you have proof of this? And she's like, it's it's classified, but I saw the things. Oh man. And anyway, apparently this is part of an ongoing effort by Trump to just change. I mean, I never thought they'd resort to aliens. That's their best play. Hey, if you want people to stop talking about these Trump files, the Epstein files, let's send the military down the main streets of every city. I think that's step one, because I feel like that'll get people talking about that. And then let's also just start saying that we have alien bodies like in a bunker somewhere. I don't know. What do you got? How about mystery robots are taking over? We already did the mystery drones over the cities. Remember, over New York earlier in the year? Oh yeah, we already did that. Okay. What else you got? How about brain parasites going to get all the dogs? Let's do that. People love their pets. Let's say hide your dogs. By the way, I shouldn't give them ideas. That would totally work. If you came out with news reports saying hide your dogs, no one would talk about Epstein again. It'd be over. Anyway, so we were talking about the DC. I'm calling it an invasion, but you can call it what you like. And he's on the list of who he's going after next is Baltimore, one of the other cities he wants to go after. He wants to go after basically cities that tend to vote slightly more left. I know Democrats are not really left wing, but people don't seem to understand that. So he wants to go after these cities that don't vote for him. DC voted like 93% for Biden. And Baltimore also voted for Democrats. So he wants to go after Baltimore. And of course, and he hasn't sent he hasn't sent troops, National Guard or anything to Baltimore yet. But the governor of Maryland is now sending more law enforcement to Baltimore to basically appease Trump. Like, don't worry, we're sending more law enforcement to Baltimore. Here's what Trump and Trump said things like, Baltimore is disgusting. I don't know if you've seen it. It's all burned down. It's all collapsing. Whatever. I live in Baltimore. I know for some reason it's New York out the window over my shoulder, and I cannot for the life of me. I've looked out that window so many times. I cannot figure out where in Baltimore that skyline is. I haven't figured it out. Anyway, so he says Baltimore, oh, the crime's horrific. We got to send the National Guard. We got to send the military. Baltimore is at possibly an all-time low for violent crime. It's at least a 50, 60-year low. This is from The Guardian, and this article is from I think several weeks ago, isn't it? August 16th. So 3 weeks ago. Baltimore's violent crime rate hit an all-time low. This is not magic, it's hard work. And so this is the polar opposite of what Trump says is happening. Baltimore homicides have fallen by 40% since 2020. They're down to, in 2024, there were 200 homicides. In 2022, before they went way down, there were 334 homicides in that year. And I know for people in other countries, they may be like, there were hundreds of homicides in one city? That's insane. And yeah, it is insane, but it's also the lowest it's been in 50 years, 60 years. And anyway, this Guardian article, if you want to look it up, goes into detail of the actual hard work that has been done to decrease these homicides. And it has not just been send a bunch of cops in, because that doesn't actually work. And in fact, they discuss how after Freddie Gray was murdered, I don't know if you guys remember, Freddie Gray, horrific murder by the police. They murdered this young man in the back of their van. He hadn't even, obviously hadn't been convicted or charged with anything because they just arrested him. And there were huge protests here. I came to some of them, and it was the violent crime went crazy that year and for a while after. because there was zero trust in the police. The police are a shit show. So it actually, violent crime did not decrease because of the Freddie Gray protests. It had the reverse effect. Baltimore's improvement is breathtaking, Guardian says. Fewer people have been killed in the city over the last 7 months than in any similar period in the last 50 years. And of course, this does not get deeper into how this is kind of like a symptom of capitalism and inequality. When you have mass inequality, you have people struggling to survive and eat, then there's going to be a lot more hardship and there's going to be a lot more violence and things like that. It doesn't get into all that because, mainstream corporate media is not allowed to say the word capitalism. It's illegal. But as of August 15th, the running 365-day total for murders in Baltimore stood at 165. So for the year that started a year ago in August, the number is actually 165 murders, which compare that to 2022 was 320 murders. That's like, if my math serves me correct, that's like half, which is pretty incredible. What was the one other thing? The mayor of Baltimore, Brandon Scott, said, "We focus on the individuals and groups that are most likely to be a victim or perpetrator of gun violence, and we go to them. They actually get a letter from me, and if they don't do that, if they don't take us up on the help to operate their lives in a different way, to not put themselves at risk of being a victim or perpetrator, or get involved in illegal and violent activity, then we remove them through our law enforcement partnership." So basically, if there's a reason to arrest these people, we don't arrest them at first. We give them, we offer to help them work on their lives. And most times, most evidence is when you give people things like food stamps and things like a free social worker to help them organize their lives, help them get a job if they want one. Most will take you up on it. Most want to do these things, but in a situation, they're in such a tough situation that it's incredibly difficult to get started in that way. But if all those things are offered to you, here's someone who can help you navigate it. Here's someone who can help you make sure you have food. Here's someone who can make sure you have housing. A lot will take you up on that. Of course, in a actual functional adult system, you would need to have a very rare program that spotted troubled people and helped them in this way. This would just be a thing that everybody got. Everybody had housing and food and clothing, and you worked as a community to make sure that people were not in so much trouble. Anyway, let's see. Crime charts start showing the decline in September 2022 when the comprehensive plan had been up and running for about a year. Scott said about 3 out of 4 people offered services by the program accepted them. So again, don't know if my math is correct, but that's 75%. 3 out of 4. Pretty certain of that. 75% accepted offer of help. And the city today has less violence than at any point in its life. He says the city today has less violence than at any point in his life, meaning Brandon Scott's. I was like, why is the city a male? Like, what? The city has less violence than any point in his life? Why has the city got to be a dude? The city could be a female. What do you mean? Have you seen the city's dick? Why are you saying the city is a male? Of the folks that have been, that we've been able to work with through our partners, 95% of them have not been re-victimized. 97.7% of them have not recidivated. I think I said that right. You're talking about, in any city, a very relatively small group of people who are at the highest risk. For us to be intensely focusing on them and to have that few of them become victims again or recidivate into their previous life is very impressive. Okay, please stop saying recidivate. Just say do it again. Have them do shit again instead of recidivate. Anyway, the point is that Baltimore's violent crime is at like an all-time low because they've actually made an effort to help people. And instead, Trump is saying it's at an all-time high, and the answer is National Guard and fucking military walking down Main Street. Like, so there's two maddening points of this. One is Trump's complete lies about the crime in any city, the crime in DC, the crime wherever. And then number two is the idea that if you just put a lot of idiots with guns out on streets, things go well. No, not true. Oh, and I know I said that Trump's going after cities that didn't vote for him, but those also happen to be cities that are less white. So he's sending military to the less white cities so that he can make them scared and dominated, such as Chicago, such as Los Angeles. Okay. I have more stuff for you. I'm going to do an extra segment over at leecamp.net, my locals page. At least one extra segment. I don't know. I got a lot of interesting stuff. Americans still haven't recovered from the pandemic. I've got George Carlin clips. I got a lot of stuff that I still want to bring you. So I'm going to bring that over to locals. You can get that for free. I'm giving you a free month. So you can join up right now for free and go watch the extra segments. Let me see here. leecamp.net. Use the code LeeCampFree. No spaces to get a free month. And obviously you can cancel at any time. leecamp.net is my locals page. And I'm going to go over there and do extra segments for you right now. So why not join us over there? And PJ in the comments says, why am I only doing an hour? I always only do an hour. I have never done more than an hour. So that's why. Yeah, these are always an hour, but I do come to you 3 times a week. I know there's other shows. There are other shows that do not come to you 3 times. Actually, if you count Unredacted Tonight, I'm here 4 days a week. So come on, 4 goddamn days a week. One of them being an amazing television show called Unredacted Tonight. Like, seriously? What the fuck? Anyway, join me over at locals, leecamp.net. Scroll down to become a subscriber and use promo code LeeCampFree, no spaces, to get a month free. Okay. Give me a second, everybody, to fix the streams. Sounds high tech, but it's not. So, and the next live stream, by the way, will be